Hello, everyone. This is Elaine Davis, and I am with VoiceEmerge. Today's topic is going to be about manager and employee relations. I have with me today Amy Zimmerman. I'll let Amy introduce herself. But Amy and I have worked together for almost
6 years.
Almost 6 years. And we've worked at 2 different corporations together, so we have a good history. Go ahead, Amy, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Amy Zimmerman. Profession, I'm a customer service manager. I live in Burnet, Texas now, but I worked with Elaine for a long time.
Yes. So, Amy, as we get started, what I was thinking that we could do as we come together is kind of talk about what qualities you look for in a manager and how it's difficult working with different managers, and we'll just kind of have just a comfortable conversation.
Okay.
So let's start off with, when you are, sometimes you walk in with a manager already there, but what do you look for?
I look for the kind of manager they are. Are they a traditional manager, or do they do more of like the servant leadership type management? Because traditional management, they're more commanding, more demanding. They want things a certain way, and as a servant leader, you want to develop and work with your team and build that confidence and build that trust. So I tend to work better with the more servant leadership, just to feel more part of the team and part of a group. And even when I was managing teams myself, I wanted to be with the team, helping them, supporting them. Obviously, as a manager, you have to keep the company goals in mind, but you get so much more out of your team when you're part of it, not just sitting in a corner office watching things go by. Another thing that I think about is how are their relationships with their other employees, other peers. How are they perceived? How do they perceive other people? Because if they perceive everyone in a certain way, is that really truly the case?
Right.
And lastly, it's important for my manager to at least know what my job is.
Yes.
What I do. They don't need to know the step-by-step, day-to-day, but have a good understanding of what my day looks like, because there are times I need help.
Yes.
And if they don't understand what I'm asking, then they can't help me.
Yes.
And that just
too far removed from the day-to-day.
Too far removed, yeah. So those are kind of the things. Self-awareness is a big thing, and are they aware of themselves and how they act? So
let's touch on, and let's start with that then. Let's touch on our relationship first. So as I said, we worked at 2 different corporations. And how do you feel that we got to where we're at today, that we have this relationship and our collaboration has been positive?
Yeah, I think there's a mutual respect. I think we found some common ground. We bonded on a personal level, and I think that's important. I've had managers where I don't know anything about them, and it makes it just uncomfortable. You don't feel like you can talk to them. And so I've always felt comfortable with you. I always knew how you treated others. I saw that right off the bat, and how they respected you, and I appreciated that. And so it just made it easy and comfortable and not so intimidating, I guess. Yeah.
And I think, just to kind of talk about some of your qualities, you always stood out as a leader to me. You always stood out as someone I know that will get the job done. And I think those are the important qualities that managers look for. They want some individuals that they know they can go to, and they're going to get the job done. And that's where you have been successful.
Thank you.
So what do you think that some other qualities that are required in order to be successful in your current role?
I think patience is a big thing. Nowadays companies are becoming leaner and leaner.
Yes.
And you have less resources. And when those resources, get depleted, everyone gets more and more things put on their plate. And it's hard, but just being patient, taking it one step at a time. Always have to, be multitasking, but you have to make sure you're doing it in the right way, so that you're getting the right things done at the right time. But, I really just think that, patience is a virtue.
Yes. One of the big things that are happening with corporations and the manager-employee relations is working remote. you know, and a lot of companies, of course, during the pandemic, we both experienced that, and that's when we first went remote. And but you have where your manager don't trust you working remote. And I experienced that as a manager, where I would call people and they would be in the mall or, you know, not where they were supposed to be. But you tell me how remote work has helped you in that relations with your manager.
You know, I mean, being remote has absolutely, you know, changed the game from being in an office. And I don't think it's in a negative way. I think there's a lot of positive things. You do have to have that trust, obviously, to know, and it doesn't take long to figure out when someone's not doing their job, you know, if they are at the mall or whatever the case may be. But I think, you know, working remotely, building those relationships, you actually have to try a little bit harder.
Yes.
And it's not a bad thing, you know, it's just a different way of thinking and a different way of building relationships, you know. And I feel like maybe even being remote, that bond comes together stronger and quicker, because you know, it's like any relationship, you get out of it what you put in it. And you know, you have to do it. But I find myself to be more you know, efficient being at home, because in the office it's what's for lunch, where's the next break, you want to go get a cup of coffee, well, how was your weekend, you know, you have all the chit chat and stuff like that, where you can still do that remotely, but it's just more streamlined. I
feel
like.
more productive being remote. No, absolutely. So one of the other questions that I want to talk about a little bit is struggling with your manager, and then at those times you have to go and support your HR or human resources team. So how do you feel that, you know, they play a big part, human resources and your manager? When do you feel you're able to go to human resources versus going to your manager, and how does that play a part?
I mean, I think, you know, just as part of the relationship, you should always try talking to your manager first. You know, that might land on deaf ears. You know, if you don't feel that things are moving in the right direction, you know, it does sometimes, you do have to go to their manager or to human resources. You know, I think it's important, if you know, feel like things are not great, make sure you're documenting everything, just so that you have your thoughts together.
That's good.
When you go into it, and try to take your emotions out of it, which is hard for everyone, because, you know, I'm right and you're wrong. You know, that's just human nature to always just assume that. And you know, if you don't feel that your voice is being heard, you know, sometimes you just have to reevaluate, and it may or may not be the right place for you. You know, and I find that holding things in, things get more out of proportion in my head. And, you know, taking that time, even just to have a conversation with your manager, once you kind of say things out loud, sometimes it's okay. You know, it's going to be okay. You just build things up, and once you let it out, everything's okay. But,
and one of the things I want to add to that, though, is you have to, as an employee, and even the manager is an employee as well, so don't forget that. But one of the things you struggle with is hoping that the right thing will be done by HR. And you have to trust someone. So at that point, you know, I do say that all employees at some point has to trust someone in HR to do the right thing. And that comes when, you know, we both worked in a situation where we had a toxic leader. And when I say a toxic leader, that means someone that's over the manager, someone that's running the corporation. And at that point, again, you have to believe that the people at the top is doing the right thing. And how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you know, I think that, again, that kind of goes back to the self-awareness thing. That you know, my old employees that I work with, that I'm still friends with today, we always joke, Amy's talking about self-awareness. But, you know, to your point, you do have to trust someone. And again, if you're just not getting anywhere, and if they can't get human resources, you know, can't get things done, or they're not getting things done, you know, you just have to move on sometimes.
Yes, it does come to that. It does.
Because there are those managers, you know, that we've experienced that they just bulldoze.
Yes, unfortunately.
And everybody's a little bit afraid of them, because they don't want to be the butt of that person's aggressive behavior either. So just not a good feeling.
Yes. And you say it right. That's when you have to recognize that it's time to, you know, maybe this is not the right environment for me, and it's time to move on. So one more thing that I want to talk about that, you know, is it's real, and but people don't talk about it, is race. You know, race plays, I mean, I want to say that people try to say they don't see color. You hear that, but we all see it. It's there. We know it exists. But how do you think race plays a part in relationships with a leader and an employee?
Yeah, and you know, the people that say they see gray and they don't see color, I don't agree with that.
I agree.
You know, I was in a previous role and I was the white girl that managed about 5 black women, and it was different. You know, you just, I'm going to treat anybody the same way. I'm going to treat you the way you treat me.
Yes.
I don't care what your skin color is, but you know, you just have to be aware of, you know, things that you say, and you know, some that you say when it comes out of your mouth, it's like not a big deal, but you have to be aware of how someone else may interpret that. Absolutely. No matter what. But I mean, I think it does play a part.
It does. It does.
You know,
and I will say that there has been, just like you said, you were a situation where all your employees were black and you were the only white. And for myself, I've gone into roles where I'm the only black and everybody is of a different nationality. And the thing is you try to treat everyone the same, but we know, we both worked with companies that had people overseas. So we know that there are different cultures there that we had to learn in order to be respectful to our employees. So it exists, and I don't think we should diminish it and say that different nationalities, but I think we should just be aware, like you said. So talk a little bit about working with people overseas. I know we both went through that.
It's a challenge. I mean, it really is, you know, especially there's a language barrier.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I've been lucky that the folks that I work with, you know, they do speak English, but, you know, still sometimes you still have difficulties. And, you know, if I'm in a situation where I don't exactly know what they're saying or understand, I repeat it back.
Good.
Okay, is this what you said? Yes or no, and that way, you know, you're not walking away with half of the information. You know, time zones are a big thing.
Yes.
And, you know, just have to be accommodating sometimes, and that's okay, but everyone has different holidays.
Yes.
And, you know, how are we going to manage things when the people overseas are away or when I'm away or whatever? Right. But I appreciate it because I love learning about new cultures and when we're in the United States, we go to certain vacation places, you know, and where do they go and what does it look like? And do I want to go there? So.
Absolutely, yes. I loved it too. I agree with you. And just to put some perspective to that, Amy and I work with teams in India, and I work with teams over in the UK. So you're absolutely right. I mean, we are like basically sitting side by side, although they're in another country, but we are basically sitting side by side as our working partners. Yeah. So no, you're absolutely right.
It's just the respect, you know, just because they're in another country, they're not sitting right next to me, you know, you still respect them for what they know and who they are.
Yes, so, exactly. Let me just, one more question before we wrap up. So you talked a lot about respect and understanding, but what about in high pressure situations when there's a huge mistake and everything goes wrong? And, you know, so let's talk a little bit about that, because we've both been there where we had to save the customer or, you know, we're losing the customer. And how do you feel the entire organization handles that?
Well, I mean, some people panic, and that's, I think, human nature to panic. Right. But it's just take a deep breath. Let's evaluate what that customer is saying, how much of it is valid, how much of it is not, and, you know, how are we going to address that? And, you know, you got to get everybody involved. You know, nothing happens by yourself. Right. And everybody's part of the team, and it's important, I think, that everyone know their role and know their part in that being a team. And, you know, sometimes you just have to take it and just eat crow sometimes and just land on the sword and say, yeah, we messed up. Right. And as a group, you know, placing blame doesn't help. Right. You know, you just all have to accept it and fix it. Yes. And hopefully that customer will let you. I've been in situations where we've done it and the customer didn't accept it, didn't let us fix it, and they moved on. And it's unfortunate. It hurts. Yes, it does. You know, I tend to get very emotionally, involved in things that I do and the clients that I have, and I want them to be happy,
Right.
and when they're not, you can't help but take that personally sometimes, even though it's not personal.
Right.
But again, it's just getting that group together, being a part of it, and making a plan and executing it and showing results at the end.
So you and I have worked together where we've had some of those issues like you share. So how do you think we, and I'm saying me and you,
Yeah.
work together to kind of get through some of those?
You got to talk about it.
Yes, and we did.
We just talk about it. If I'm not handling it right, you would step in, and that's okay. That's your job as the manager. So, and I don't take things personally, or I try not to. Don't get my feelings hurt.
Right.
But if it takes getting on a plane to go see that customer, you just got to do it.
Yes.
And get a phone call, and I think everyone that I've ever worked with has respected you and so much
Yes.
to know that, okay, Elaine means what she says and says what she means.
Right.
So.
And I think that's the important part. And reason why I wanted to do this today, especially with you, is because we have that working relationship. We've worked together for 6 years. You've been a leader before, and you still are leading some, individuals. And I think it's important for everyone to know that we all go through these same things on both sides of the ends. And so we all do have those struggles. So that's why it was so important to want to share that with my audience and let them know that, these things do exist.
Yeah.
So if you have, as we try to wrap up, do you have any closing remarks or any recommendation as you look back and say, this is what I would do?
Yeah, I think, any recommendations or advice, for any manager, any employee is, be aware of your tone of voice, be aware of your body language, be aware of the look on your face.
That's good.
You cannot control what people think of you and the perception that they see, but you do have control of how you present yourself and what you put out there.
Yes.
And, like I said, you get back what you put in, and just treat people the right way, and I think you'll find respect goes a long way. And as long as everyone respects each other, I think that the team can be successful.
Yes.
So.
Well, thank you. And again, this is VoiceEmerge, and the goal is to bring different conversations to the table. And I want to thank Amy for coming in today and sitting with me. And if you have any questions or you have any feedback for us, please email me. My email address is listed below. And I thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.